When I was in college, I took a film class, and before I took that class, I didn't really understand art, and eventually I got a degree in art, but I was still a physics major at that time, and I took this class because I was taking any class that I felt interested in. That's how I did college. Wow, that looks interesting, maybe I'll learn something. And I did, and I eventually changed my life, but I started taking this class, and what the professor did, he'd show us just an extremely boring movie. And then at the end of the movie, he'd talk about all of these things that, well, I found interesting because I didn't know directors did those things. Like, did you notice the play between verticality and horizontality? I'd look back and I think, oh, okay, yeah, I did notice that. I didn't really know directors thought about those kind of things, but it's still a boring movie. Then one day, we watched this movie. It was The Passenger, 1975 with Jack Nicholson. And I'm not exaggerating, this is the perfectly apt use of this phrase. My mind was blown. I saw something that I had never seen before, and this is the art experience for people who don't have art in their lives. When suddenly they understand what art is and why there's this obsession with it and why paintings sell for millions of dollars, you understand it in that moment. You are experiencing a state of consciousness that you were unable to experience before because someone helped you by perfecting a craft and then expressing themselves artistically. Oh my God, it changed my life. While I was watching it, I was like, my life is currently being changed. I'm understanding something in a new way. But that day, during that class, I had to leave early for some reason. As soon as the movie ended, I had to leave. And it was really sad because usually the professor would come up and talk about the movie. I couldn't wait to deepen my understanding and deepen my appreciation and share my own thoughts, or at least maybe hear them and confirm that those thoughts were had by other people. But anyway, I left right after the movie. So a couple of days later, I'm in class again, and I'm so excited, and I don't hear anyone talking about the movie. And so I bring it up, and I find out that the professor had shown us the movie just to give us an example of a bad movie. I could not believe it. And I spent the rest of the class arguing for that movie, writing essays about why it was an amazing movie. And it's so funny. And I've been accused before of being a contrarian, but I have the opinion before I find out it's anything contrary. I showed Adam Basic Instinct last night. It was such an amazing experience because everyone knows how difficult it is to share a movie you like with a friend. You're like, this is something that I love and it means so much to me. Please enjoy it. And they're just like, oh yeah, it was cool. Yeah, great. But Adam's very articulate. And so not only did I have this experience where I felt that I wasn't alone in the world because someone else saw a movie that I liked and liked it for the same reasons, but I had all of these things that I wasn't really able to express in words expressed to me by Adam after watching the movie. And that was really exciting. And Adam was saying that he didn't really know that movies could be like that. Because a lot of people, just like I think I was, that you just go to the theater and you watch like X-Men and stuff, and you're like, this is entertainment. Movies are entertainment. It's just a director trying to be as entertaining as possible so that he can get a bunch of money and go home. Everyone's involved in that just money-making scheme where you kind of distract someone from ordinary life. But a lot of movies are genius, and they are made by people who have just followed this passion in their life for artistic expression and are very delicate with what they do and are operating on a much higher level where meaning exists if you look for it. So if you watch Basic Instinct and you're like, oh, well, obviously she's the killer, oh, you're missing the point of Basic Instinct. Maybe not missing the point, because of course a point of the movie is to be entertaining like all movies, but if you turned your mind on and you really aim to enjoy it, and maybe it has to start with an expectation that there is something to enjoy when you look for it. It's a very rich movie. It's so situational. It depends entirely on the context of your own life. For visual art, the art piece that opened my mind up to that, it's part of the post-internet art movement, and it was this guy, Brad Trammell, very young artist, and he had taped a potato to a wall with a Band-Aid. And I saw a picture of that online, and when I saw that, I was like, oh, visual art, I get it now. And I can't even explain how that translated to a leap in my mind, because it was so specific to my human experience. But before, when I was looking at art, I was looking at a lot of great artwork that was from the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, where all of these artists had already had their period so that they became culturally validated and everyone understood they had made something good, and it wasn't still up in the air like new contemporary artwork is. So I had never really had a reflection of my own culture like that. I'd never really seen what it meant to be alive in the early aughts, or the teen years. And when I saw that potato taped to a wall with a Band-Aid, I suddenly understood what it was like to be alive in 2012. Adam, after watching Basic Instinct, he thought, oh man, I wonder what this is gonna do for watching other movies. And I knew that was coming, and I didn't know how to break it to him, because when you watch a movie like that and you understand that movies can be so much more, it ruins a lot. And it makes you alienated from a lot of people. You can no longer be with your group of friends and go watch Guardians of the Galaxy in theaters and get pumped, And if you try to say something about how that movie failed to achieve anything, then your friends are going to be like, you're a fucking pretentious, cynical bastard. I don't want to go see movies with you anymore. And so it's sad, actually. I don't know if that was even a good thing. They say that ignorance is bliss. But it's worth it in the end. When I changed my major from physics to art, I didn't view it as such a distinct switch. When I told people about it, they're like, wow, that's very different. You're going from physics to art. It's a totally opposite thing. But I viewed it as one continuous path. I mean, I didn't view it as that, of course, because I could understand conceptually that it was a huge switch, but I felt it as one continuous path. Because what drew me to physics and what put me on that path was my enjoyment of discovery and an expanding consciousness. And once my eyes were opened up to art, I understood artwork to be exactly the same thing, just much richer, in my opinion. So I'd study physics, and maybe in a certain chapter or a certain lecture, I would have a new formula introduced to me, right? And this formula would show the relations between forces, right? Art is the same thing. You watch Basic Instinct, and it's like you're viewing, suddenly, a complex formula. And when you see that formula, you're like, oh, force relates to mass and acceleration. But it's much more delicate and subtle and complex than that. You're suddenly understanding the archetype of the female and the male form. And you're understanding how those things flow through time and culture. And you're understanding the risks we take and the trust that we have to have when we open ourselves to love. And you understand these relations in a way that you might understand them if you were raised in a family that had some sort of just a really good culture inside of it, where when you're 13 years old, your dad comes down and he explains to you what it means to open yourself up to another person and enter into a relationship. If you don't get that kind of thing, then you never get that formula in your life. But you can get it from movies and from art and from painting and from ballet and all sorts of stuff. But the thing is, and this is what Adam was lamenting too, it doesn't matter how well it's articulated, how artfully that concept is communicated to a general audience. If the audience doesn't know that it's there, then they won't look for it. And if they're not looking for it, then they won't see it. Ang Lee is an amazing director. All of his movies, I think they get me the closest to experiencing that feeling of that really longing type of love. don't know if I want to watch Brokeback Mountain with Adam. You have the liberty to elevate an experience in whatever way you can, that you will find if you seek. I wonder what I'd be able to find if I watched this movie. Sometimes when you get something that you know doesn't have a higher level artistic intention, it allows you to develop that higher level artistic intention just by projecting high level concepts onto it. And it's kind of like what Paul Verhoeven says about directing movies. He says, never write your own movie. Take a book and then elevate that book into something new. So you can do that in practice if you want. Get a movie like this about Paul Mitchell making nice hair, and then elevate it into something new in your own way. It's like directing a movie in your mind. I didn't know that there was a Basic Instinct too. This is probably terrible. Oh my god. And it's not directed by Paul Verhoeven either. It's just like some people who were like, man, we need more naked Sharon Stone. That's what the audience wants.